Are you ready? Are you ready? Gather round, gather round, gather round, clowns. Michael Moulton, Into the Rock, coming to you live. That's right, live from Dallas, Texas, baby, from the DFW Coin and Jewelry Studio. Brought to you by Healing Springs Ranch. Healing Springs Ranch, the official residential treatment center of Into the Rock, where we talk about drug addiction. We talk about alcoholism. We talk about hurts, habits, and hang-ups. But most importantly on this show, we talk about solutions. We talk about a lot of stuff. And tonight, we're going to be talking about the dreaded relapse. Chronic relapsers. I'm a chronic relapser. It's interesting because before we get the show started, we want to get everyone to, so we're going to do this together, okay? I'm doing the opening just a little bit differently tonight. I'm waiting for everyone to get logged on, to get booted on. So we got to get on here. I want to see everybody on here, and we're going to get this shared out. We're going to share this onto your timeline so the ones that are still suffering can watch this and be a part of something special. So I'm going to do this right now. I'm sharing this out here. I'm sharing it to my personal timeline. And then I'm going to share it to my group, which is called Into the Rock Facebook Live. And I know y'all are members of a couple of groups, so those groups, okay? So you want to share those out to the groups and then start a watch party. Why not? Start a watch party. Start a watch party so everybody can watch it. So we want to get the, this is a numbers game. And let me tell you why it's a numbers game. Because this disease takes us out into the numbers. Now I'm going to get on this phone here and get it shared out because I want everybody to share this out. And when we share this out, we're sharing it out together. And then we're going to start the show together because I want everybody to get on here. My name is Michael Moulton. I'm your host tonight. And no, I did not relapse. Just because it says chronic relapser, why am I relapsing, doesn't mean that I relapse. My sobriety date is May 29th, 2017. I'm a grateful, recovering drug addict alcoholic, and by the grace of God, I have almost got, I got 2.75 years of sobriety. I'm a baby. I am a baby in this program, and I'm just learning stuff every day. So I want to make sure y'all share this. I want y'all in the comments right now to tell me where you're watching from. I need y'all to check in. Oh, there's my volume. So here we are. I see everybody on there. Okay, here we go. We're getting this thing going. What do y'all think about the studio? Got a big week coming up. Valentine's week. What are you doing for Valentine's? What are you doing for Valentine's? And we talk about relationships and recovery. That could lead to relapse. Why does that lead to relapse? We're going to talk about that. The reason why relationships and recovery and early recovery, when we are not ready to have a relationship, can end to relapse is because it leads to the number one offender that kills more drug addicts and alcoholics than anything else, and that is resentment. Yep. You heard it. You heard it right here on Into the Rock. Resentments. I see the great Higgy in there. Hello, Higgy 2.0. Speaking of Robin Higginbotham, he is the founder of the Survivor Series, Higgy 2.0, and No More Heroin. So I will be on his show not this Sunday. And Higgy, I'm glad that happened because Rachel Stacey will be filming her new music video this Sunday because it is going to be sunny and 72 degrees in Dallas, Texas, D-Town, baby, the 214, because we're going to be filming that. So next Sunday, y'all tune in to the Survivor Series, Higgy 2.0, No More Heroin, and I'm getting interviewed by the great Robin Higginbotham, a.k.a. Higgy, who is working in an incredible program. We're going to talk about relapsing tonight on the show. This is a book that was just mailed to me. I've been talking about this. Cameron Douglas, Long Way Home. He is touring right now across the country, promoting his new book. He mailed it out to me. So I just got it in the mail. I started reading it last night, and we're going to show y'all something here real quick. He's going to be coming to Dallas May 8th. May 8th, Cameron Douglas will be coming to Dallas, Texas for the Stars in Recovery luncheon. They're going to have about 3,000 people at this event. And he said that he doesn't speak, but he does interviews, and they wanted M2 to be the person to interview Cameron Douglas when he comes to Dallas. So I've been doing some research on him. I'm really, really excited about this. Cameron Douglas, as a matter of fact, I got a short 4-minute piece I want y'all to see. I'm going to show this to you. Cameron Douglas is, man, this guy's my twin. I mean, this guy, we're not unique, but he has got an incredible story that we're going to be talking about and looking forward to on May 8th. Here we go, May 8th. Cameron Douglas will be in Dallas, Texas. While we're doing dates and mark the date, we've got March 4th here in Dallas, Texas. We have got Recovery's Got Talent Season 2 will be doing that. So, yes, I see the questions coming in. I cannot wait to read your questions today about relapse. I was a chronic relapser. I was a chronic relapser in this disease. I fought this disease God, I fought this thing to the bitter end, and I still sometimes fight this disease, and I'm going to give you my take on relapse, chronic relapsers, and how all of that works by using my personal experience, strength, and hope. But before we get the show started, I'm going to need everybody to share this out. Check this out. I got this for you, a little 4-minute piece about Cameron Douglas, who is coming to Dallas, Texas on May 8th and will be interviewed by yours truly, M2 The Rock. Check this out. And my name is Michael Moulton. We'll be right back to talk about chronic relapsing. Relapse. It's a part of recovery. It's a part of recovery. Is it acceptable? Is relapse acceptable? While you're watching this, I want you to put your questions in the comments. I'm going to address your questions about relapse, and I'm going to give you M2's take on chronic relapse. Why do we relapse? Why do we go back out? Why does this happen to us when I thought I was working my program? Michael Moulton, M2 The Rock. Enjoy this little piece. Cameron Douglas.
Cameron Douglas was born into Hollywood royalty, but sadly, he went off track, struggling with addiction. Now 40, Cameron has turned everything around, and he's telling our own Chesley Christ it was his famous stepmom who helped him mend his relationship with his dad, Michael. He battled addiction and survived nearly 8 years behind bars on drug charges. Now, the 40-year-old son of Michael Douglas is on a mission to turn his living hell into a cautionary tale in his book, Long Way Home.
I can't go back and change some of those things, but what I can try and do is make them something, hopefully that will be useful to people that are either struggling with addiction or have families that are struggling with loved ones.
When do you feel like you reached rock bottom?
I mean, there's so many times that, you know, I should have reached rock bottom. When I received my second sentence, I felt something inside of me sort of break. I sort of had two paths left open to me. One probably would have not allowed me to make it back, and the other gave me a purpose to start building a life for myself.
Did your father help you at all with this book?
He did. He was really the initial motivating factor behind writing this book, which was something that I wrestled with for a while because my family is very private. But I think in the end of the day, it's about the bigger picture.
It sounds like you've been incredibly disciplined. I mean, you have this new memoir. Has this memoir and the development, working with your dad, improved some of the relationships that you have in your life?
It has, you know, and even in doing some of the press for this book, my father and I sitting down together and, you know, being forced to speak about things together that we would probably never speak about on our own has been healing. So that's been a beautiful byproduct of this process.
What role has Catherine played in your recovery and your progress since you left prison?
Catherine and I, we hit it off, you know, from the very beginning. Initially, after coming home from prison, after all those years, my father was understandably a little bit standoffish. And I feel like it was at her behest that he kind of opened back up to me a little bit.
How was he being standoffish before?
It was a short lifetime of, you know, the reckless behavior that landed me in prison. After so many years of that dynamic, it takes a little while to open yourself back up again.
I mean, because he was pretty afraid for you. He'd seen, you know, the death of his half-brother Eric and was afraid that you would meet the same sort of demise. Is that right?
Yeah.
But this first-time father is on a different path.
How is your daughter doing?
She's a pleasure, but she's also seriously been a real teacher to me.
How's that?
I learn a lot about myself through her. She's teaching me a whole new kind of patience, which is just helpful in every facet of my life.
In addition to your memoir, it sounds like you've also done some community service work and dedicated some of your time to helping in homeless shelters. How has that kind of work benefited you and helped you to affect greater change in the community?
So my grandfather and his wife Anne have been very involved in the Los Angeles mission. That's located down in the middle of Skid Row in Los Angeles, and they do amazing work down there. So obviously they're getting a little bit older. They're 202 years old between them. So I'm just trying to, step in and be as helpful as possible and do what I can to, help them do the great work that they do down there.
Thank you for watching. If you want more extra, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you'll never miss a video.
Welcome back. Welcome back. My man, Cameron Douglas. So May 8th, mark your calendars. May 8th, Cameron Douglas, Long Way Home, will be in, to be accurate, he will be in Fort Worth, Texas at the Recoveries. Let's see here. The Recoveries, Stars in Recovery. Stars in Recovery Luncheon on May 8th, 2020 is the 32nd annual Jim Bradshaw Memorial Luncheon. I did it last year with Nick Sheff. Remember Nick Sheff? Nick Sheff was the gentleman who they did the movie Beautiful Boy, about Beautiful Boy, Nick Sheff. So that will be coming up in May 8th. February 20th, Marsha Williamson. Marsha Williamson, CEO of our local Dallas 24-hour club, is going to be coming on the show talking about the big pancake. Let's see what we got here. The pancake breakfast that we're having at the 24-hour club. So welcome to the show, everyone. I'm super excited about tonight's show. I appreciate your patience. I got sick last night. Really got sick. I was at our recovery, Healing Springs Ranch. That's where we're here at the DFW Coin and Jewelry Studio. I was at Healing Springs Ranch yesterday working and just started getting waves of nausea and just could not shake it. So I'm feeling good today. I'm back. I was at Healing Springs Ranch this morning and then going there tomorrow morning to do our group. And we have got the great Valentine's coming up this Friday. So what's everybody doing for Valentine's? All right, relapse. We talk a lot about relapse. We hear about relapse. And I really started thinking about this as I participated in my very first intensive family weekend. The client's family came out. I got to meet with them. I got to talk to them about the disease of alcoholism, the disease of drug addiction. I got to be the voice on my side of what it where it comes from, and I got to explain to them, share with them my experience, strength, and hope, and provide hopefully some hope for them so they could better understand the struggling drug addict and alcoholic. And their main concern is when my loved one gets out of treatment are they going to relapse? I just don't want them to relapse. I want them to be happy, joyous, and free, and just have all this cleared out and going good and just living life on life's terms. Is he fixed? Is he fixed? There is no guarantee from the relapse. There is no guarantee from this. But let me share a story based on my experience. I will never forget when I very first started this journey. I started this journey in 1999. I knew at a very young age that my life was unmanageable because of drugs and alcohol. I knew I was different. Cameron Douglas talks about that. You hear a lot of people that are in recovery that when they started doing drugs and they started consuming alcohol, they felt like they just did not fit in until they took the drugs and alcohol and they became able to fit in to society. They felt like they blended in better. They could talk better. They could be bigger. They could run fast. All those things that we thought that drugs and alcohol would do. We did. And I'll never forget that when I went to my very first support group meeting, I went to a support group meeting and I sat down and I heard these men telling their stories about what alcohol had done to them. And I left the meeting and I said, man, that is not who I am. These guys were just really dealt a bad deck. And I remember, leaving there saying, I'm not homeless. I'm not unemployed. I'm not, I still have my wife. I still have my kids. I have my company. I own a company. I still have lots of money and I have all this stuff. And I didn't feel like I was one of these people. Okay. Well, right there, the disease is active and it's telling me that I don't have a disease. Remember, I say this a lot. This disease is cunning. It's baffling. It's powerful. This disease speaks to me in my own voice. This disease tells me I don't have a disease. And most importantly, this disease is very, very, very patient. Very patient, and it will wait until the right opportunity to knock me down to my knees. And I'll never forget when I had my very first overdose and I was admitted into basically a psych ward. And I went from the psych ward and I went to an inpatient treatment center out in California. And when I went to the inpatient treatment center in California, I was supposed to be there for 28 days, and I ended up staying there for 6 months. And I thought that this treatment center was going to fix me, and I started learning a lot of things. I started to learn about the disease. I really learned a lot about how the disease is, and I had a real good grasp on it, I thought, but I didn't work on me. And I talk a lot about on the show the 12 steps of recovery. Okay, and how the 12 steps work, how they're working in my life, and there's a lot of different ways to get clean and sober, and there's a lot of different ways to do it, but this way is working for me. The 12 steps was a trick. It got me close to God. It got me to where I met God, met my higher power, who I call Jesus Christ today, and it's working for me. It works for me. So as I learned these 12 steps, I'll never forget that after all I kept relapsing. I kept going to these meetings. I kept trying to stay sober, and I could not stay sober. I would pull a 30 days together. I'd pull 40 days together, and I would end up going back out. And each relapse would get worse and worse and worse until I came back from this long-term treatment center in California. And I came back, and my number one goal was not to drink alcohol. But I will always remember the mental obsession was still there. The mental obsession, I would hear people saying the mental obsession of drugs and alcohol has been removed, okay? It hadn't been removed. I kept thinking about it all the time. Mental obsession of drugs and alcohol means that we are thinking about drugs and alcohol 24 hours a day. That's all we think about. And it's white knuckling. I can't drink today. I can't do drugs today. I didn't know how I can do it. I did not know how to stay sober. So I have a theory. I have a theory on the relapse in using the 12-step program, okay? Is there a difference between a lapse and a relapse? Todd, I like that. So I'm starting to read the questions here. I've got a phone here that is blowing up. Y'all give me a second here. Let me turn this off. I got people texting like crazy, and I usually turn this off. So let me turn this off 1 second here. And so I tell you what, we're going to come right back. When we come right back, we're going to talk about this. I've really got a good story I want to share with you. Michael Moulton, M to the Rock. Thank you.
Healing Springs Ranch is designed for people that really want to come and do the work. And not just work on their addictive behaviors, but going deeper and finding the underlying issues and sharing them, and oftentimes for the first time sharing them out loud, kind of dumping out everything that's holding you back. And in the process, what we try to do is nurture and heal that particular wound while they're here. We really wanted this to be a transformative experience for people, not just a drying out place or a place where they go and check off a box. We truly wanted this to be an opportunity for everyone to take a pause in their life and figure out what they need to do to go live their purpose. So we're very passionate about folks finding purpose and meaning to why they exist, and finding ways to utilize that purpose and meaning for them to go on and actually have a more successful and happier life.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Michael Moulton, M to the Rock. Welcome to the show. We are talking about relapse, the chronic relapsing, and why do I relapse? I'm truly convinced that when we go into a 12-step recovery program and that we go to these support group meetings, my personal story is simply this. This is my personal story of why I continue to relapse. We go and we want to get sober, and we truly want to get sober. And we go when we do the first step, and we admit that we're powerless over alcohol and drugs, that our life has become completely unmanageable, right? But my past is that I did half of step one. I admitted that I was powerless. I admitted that my life was unmanageable because of drugs and alcohol. I did admit that, but I did not understand what powerless meant, okay? But I was going to these support group meetings, and I was able to pull some days clean and sober, okay? And what I was doing there was as I was getting half honest. And that's why these support group meetings are so powerful, and they mean so much to go to these meetings, because what happens is we start getting connected, okay? And so when I go to these meetings and I start getting connected to these people, and I start sharing my experience, strength, and hope, and I start listening to other people share their experience, strength, and hope, guess what happens? I start connecting to people. I start really understanding what these people are talking about, and I get this magical feeling of hope, okay? And there's this phenomenon that is out there that you'll see a person that they go into recovery and they hit what's called the very first stage of recovery is called the detox phase. Now, the detox phase is usually 30 to 45 days when we go in and we stop drinking. We stop doing drugs, and we don't want to do it, and we are white-knuckling it, and by sheer willpower that we think it is, we don't drink and drug for 30 to 45 days. We're going to support group meetings, okay? We're doing this thing over and over, and we're getting this thing. We're getting some rhythm going. We can breathe again. We're going to bed at a decent hour. We're waking up. The chaos is kind of slowing down. We're going to these support group meetings, and then we hit this other phase, the next phase of recovery, which is called the pink cloud phase, okay? Now, the pink cloud phase is where we feel great. So if you can relate to me, in early recovery, we're going to meetings. We're usually on about day 55, day 56, where people are clapping for us. We're sharing in support group meetings. We're sharing how we feel. We're getting connected. We're working with people around us. Not working with people around us, but we're connected with people around us. They say in support group meetings, it's suggested that you go to meetings and you work these 12 steps and you get a mentor. Some groups call it a sponsor. Some groups call it an accountability partner. But you get a mentor to help you, guide you through these steps. Now, you're in the pink cloud phase. Now, the pink cloud phase looks like this. You feel great. You want to open up treatment centers. You want to open up more support groups. You just feel outstanding. And what's happening is that the brain is actually rebuilding dopamine. And the brain builds so much dopamine that the dopamine actually gets built higher than what our normal dopamine level is. Now, this is what I was taught. I'm not a doctor, okay? But the dopamine level is so high, and so we feel great. It's that rush, okay? This usually happens around step 2. So step 2, we're going to meetings. The dopamine level is very high. We have the pink cloud, and we are wired almost to a state of mania. And I remember going that, man, I love recovery. This is what recovery is all about. What was I missing? This is awesome, okay? I'm buying tons of books. I'm getting every support book. I'm getting everything. I'm not reading, but I'm going to meetings. And guess what? Like, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like going, in 2 hours, I'm going to my noon meeting. I can't wait to get there. And this is all great, but this is the pink cloud phase. Then what happens is the brain starts correcting, and the dopamine levels come back down to normal. And that is when we hit what's called the wall phase. The wall phase. What is the wall phase? The wall phase is when the brain corrects, and that's the lull in recovery that if you can relate, I can relate to it, and that's when we hit this phase of this. Is this what recovery is all about? I can't get out of bed. It can be camouflaged as depression, okay? And what happens is a lot of people will start when they hit the wall phase, they start disconnecting. And when we disconnect in the wall phase, the first thing that I would start doing is I would stop going to meetings. I would stop going to support group meetings. And when I stopped going to support group meetings, I became disconnected. When people in the program would call me and check on me, I would not call them back, all right? Now, keep in mind, I am a long-term drug addict and alcoholic, all right? And I haven't even done step 1 and 2. I think I have, but what I've done is I've pulled about 63, 64 days of sobriety together, all right? And then I start disconnecting from the meetings because I'm still holding on to this false sense of hope, right? As life starts happening and I get into fear and I get into resentments, I have no tools. They say we're defenseless against the first drink. I'm defenseless against the very first feeling of fear and resentments. Now remember, I haven't addressed any of this stuff. I don't know why I drink. I don't know why I drink. On day 64, if someone would have said, Michael, why do you drink and why do you do drugs? The honest answer is, I don't know. I don't know. All I'm trying to do right now is detox because these steps are in order for a reason. Does this make sense to y'all? So this is a very common deal. They call it the step 1, 2, and 12. So many people do this. They'll go steps 1 and 2, and they don't work the rest of the steps, but they have this euphoria, this pink cloud, and they want to go help everybody. They want to go help everybody. Let me tell you something. Before I worked all the steps, I had nothing to offer to anybody. Nothing. If someone came to me and they said, listen, I have a resentment, I have fear, how can I help them when I haven't done it myself? So the key to it is soon as we can get to step 3, as fast as possible, that's when we make a decision to turn our will and life over to the care of God as we understand Him, right? So as soon as we can get there, then we make that step, then we go into our 4th step and we do an inventory. We do an inventory and I get to figure out why I do the things that I do. Now, everybody that I have personally seen in my personal recovery, this is my story, that has relapsed, here's the common denominator. Number 1, they were not attending support group meetings. That's number 1, okay? And number 2, they were not working a 12-step program, number 2. And number 3, they did not have an accountability partner or a mentor or a sponsor. Every single one of those 3 things right there, 100% of the people that relapse, that is the formula that they were not doing. That was me. Every time that I relapsed, I stopped doing that. The famous thing that Judge Jennifer Bennett told me on my very last arrest, when I went in front of her handcuffed, she says, Michael, the reason why you are back here in front of me today is because you stopped attending support group meetings. And she was right. The dreaded relapse, it's a result. It is a result. So when I start relapsing, let's talk about recognizing the relapse. Let's talk about how we recognize the relapse behaviors, okay? So what I have learned based on my experience that when I get into fear, if I don't do anything with that feeling, like we talked about on the show, what does it turn into? That's right, I heard you, resentment, okay? It turns into a resentment. When I'm in resentments, when I have a resentment, if I don't do anything with that feeling of resentment, what does it turn into? That's right, I heard you. It turns into anger, okay? Now, if I don't have any tools on how to deal with all this stuff, in order to make these feelings go away, I'm not going to drink, right? But what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start reaching for visible things to fix my invisible problems. Has anyone ever told you, they say, hey, Michael, I see it coming. I see your pattern. Your patterns are so predictable. I can see it coming. I see the behaviors coming. What does it look like? Let me tell you. relapse behaviors. That's the great thing about the 12-step program of recovery, is that I get to figure out what my relapse behaviors are. They're called character defects, okay? They're called in our inventory. What do I do to try to change the way I feel? But I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drugs. So it can be like we can start overspending, over shopping, overeating, over sex, pornography, gambling, cussing, smoking. All of these things that I start reaching out to try to change the way I feel, guess what I'm doing? I am in full-blown relapse. I am in full-blown relapse. When I start recognizing that behavior, recovery is this. I recognize it. That's what recovery is all about, and that's what the steps are so great for, because then we go into step 2, step 10. Step 10 is we continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, we promptly admit it. Every single night, we are challenged. It is suggested that we do what's called a 10th step. You take a personal inventory throughout your day. Did I do anything wrong? Did I wrong somebody? Do I owe someone an amends? And I go through the entire day. And I make sure that I recognize my relapse behaviors. Let me tell you something. This guy right here, when my eyes are open, I'm in full-blown relapse. I have relapse behaviors throughout the entire day, but some days are better than other, okay? And when I am spiritually connected, the relapse behaviors dissipate. But when I am spiritually disconnected, I start reaching out for things to change the way I feel. Are y'all ready? Energy drinks. If I'm drinking energy drinks, I'm in relapse. If I start smoking cigarettes, I am in relapse, okay? If I start buying things that I don't need, if I'm trying to reach out and grab a visible solution for my invisible problems, I am in full-blown relapse. If I'm trying to manipulate people, if my motives aren't pure, if I'm trying to do things that are for selfish reasons, I am in full-blown relapse. Now, I hope y'all can relate to this. I'm not telling you that you are, but this is me. I am very, very hard on myself as far as relapse behavior, because I never, ever want to do that again. Because what happens is when the smoking stops working, when the gambling stops working, when the food stops working, when the women stop working, okay, when work stops working, when anything that I'm trying to fill this void with besides God, okay? And I can fill that void with people in recovery, because God will speak through them to help me. When I start doing that, guess what I end up doing? I end up going back to my DOC, and my drug of choice was drugs and alcohol. And we end up using drugs and alcohol, and we do not know how it happened. That's the chronic relapser, when we don't know how it happened. That's why it is so imperative that I highly suggest that we work all of these 12 steps, okay? Step 1, we get honest. We're getting honest with number 1, ourself, and number 2, with another human being that's in recovery. This has nothing to do with God yet, okay? Hear me out. Step 1 is that we are getting honest, okay? My life is unmanageable because of drugs and alcohol. I am powerless over it. You heard Cameron Douglas in it. The common denominator with people that suffer with drugs and alcohol addiction, which I am grateful for today, I don't look at it as a stigma, because guess what? We have solutions. I would hate to be at home miserable because of pornography. I'd hate to be at home miserable of shopping and not understanding that it's an addiction and I don't have a solution to it, okay? But today we have solutions to our problems, because you know what? Drugs and alcohol aren't my problem. Drugs and alcohol are not my problem. My problem is that I don't know how to process fear. That's my problem. But today I do. Today I have solutions. I have tools on how to process fear. Do you know how I process fear? I talk about it. I talk about it with another alcoholic. I talk about it in a group of alcoholics. I talk about it with people who can relate to me. And then I realize that the fear is just a lie. It's a story. It doesn't exist. And when I do it that way, you know what the opposite of fear is? Faith. You know what faith is? Faith is action. Faith is actions, not words. Okay? So step one, that's what we do, is that we get honest. I'm powerless over this stuff, okay? I'm also powerless over anger. I'm powerless over resentment. I'm powerless over food. I'm powerless over people. Boy, am I powerless over people. That people aren't doing it right, okay? I'm powerless over them. Then step two is I came to believe there's a power greater than myself to restore me to sanity, okay? What is that? Community, fellowship, relationships, the group, okay? My support group, your Sunday school class, your church group, okay? A healthy group of men who are like-minded, that are solution-based, not problem-based, okay? I went to the bar, I drank with a bunch of men because they co-signed and endorsed my resentments. That's what they did. They co-signed and they endorsed my resentments, and the next day they weren't there. That was the disease of alcohol. Today it's flipped. It's flipped 180 degrees, and now I surround myself with men that are in the program, that are in solution and faith-based. That's what works for me. Step three, now we have made a decision to turn our will and life over to the care of God, all right? It's faith, okay? Now we're giving our life to God. A God as we understand him. I'm not talking about a God, a church God. I'm not talking about that. You get to create a God that you understand. What if you have religion trauma, okay? Guess what? I got religion trauma too. When it comes to religion, I'm an atheist. Don't believe in it. But when it comes to spirituality and the Word of God, I'm all in. 110%. I'm all in. I am not faithful 24/7, but you know what? I know when I'm not faithful. And that's the beautiful thing about doing step 3 correctly. When I'm not faithful, the pain is so bad. And when I'm not faithful, the pain is so bad. And I don't even think about drugs and alcohol because I did step 3. I know God's going to handle it. I have to surrender, and I got to give it to him and do it his way. This could go in 30 seconds. I could carry this out for 3 or 4 days. And it's not pretty when I don't surrender and I hold on to it. Now, step 4, why do we relapse? Why do I continue to relapse? Let me tell you something. Once you've done step 3 correctly, this is a God that loves you. This is a God full of grace. It's a God that's a merciful God. And this God is going to take you to step 4, and you should be excited to go to step 4. When we are excited to go to step 4 is we are doing a personal inventory on my immoral behavior. And guess what? God takes my immoral behavior, turns it into a story, and I get to go out and tell the whole world about my 4th step, not in detail, but I get to find out why I did what I did, and I get to go tell the whole world and show the world that he alone is God, right? As I'm doing my 4th step, my faith is increased. I start going, this is not that big a deal, and I do an inventory, and I start, for the first time, I can answer people why I drink and did drugs. Why did I drink and do drugs? Let me tell you why I drink and did drugs. When I got the feeling of fear, I didn't do anything with it. When I got the feeling of fear, I would hold on to it and bury it, and then it would turn into a resentment. When I got resentful, I would hold on to it and bury it. Guess what? I would hold on to that resentment, and then it would turn into anger. When I got angry, I would still hold on to that anger, and I didn't like that feeling. And when that anger would turn into rage, and I would hold on to that rage, I didn't like that feeling. I would hold on to that feeling of rage. I would hold on to it, and then it would turn into isolation. And then that isolation would turn into paranoia. And this is a cycle that kept going on, and I didn't know why I was doing it. And as these cycles increase, these phases of fear increased down to paranoia. Once I got to paranoia, I was disconnected from recovery. I was disconnected from God, and I went back to my God of my understanding, and it was drugs and alcohol, and once again, I relapsed. That's my roadmap. That is my roadmap to spiritual sickness. Spiritual sickness. So, what is the solution? What's the solution for fear? Right now, everyone in the comments do hashtag talk. I want to see every one of y'all that are watching this show right now, hashtag talk. T-A-L-K. Hashtag talk. That is the solution for fear. We talk about it. When I am fear, I talk about it. I recognize that I'm in the future alone. I'm out in my head, out in the future alone. It doesn't exist. It's a lie. It's not happening, because the safest place in the world is right here, right now, because that's where God's at. So I do step 4. And I share all of this. Step 4, I share all this. I confess all of this. I confess all of this to another man, which is a mentor, accountability partner, a sponsor. Men work with men. Women work with women. This is very, very important. Men work with men, women work with women, because in early recovery, relationships will destroy a person in early recovery. And the reason why is because I have nothing to offer another woman in early recovery. I have nothing to offer another woman because, number one, I'm on step 4. I just established a relationship with God. I just established a relationship with something I did not believe and trust in my entire life. I have nothing to offer another woman. But wait, I will. Because what God does is he will clean us from the inside out and turn us into an incredible partner to help that person. So that's hope. Hang on there, because God will put that right person right in your life, not until we know each other. When a woman is put in your life, I'm talking to men, and you have a woman in your life, just let me give you some hope. You work these steps, you get to know yourself. What an amazing man that you can be, that when your wife or girlfriend sit down with you and you say, I'm in fear. Michael, I'm in fear. I am anxious about something, and you can sit there and actually provide a solution. The old me, I could never do that. A girl would say that to me. I had nothing to give her. I'm saying, what are you, just weak? You're just weak. I mean, that's nothing to talk about. I don't want to talk about that. You know why I can't talk about it? Because I don't know what I'm talking about. But today, I have solutions because of what other men have given me. I didn't make it up. God spoke through these men to me, and now I have something that I can give back. All right? Step 5, confession. We repent. When I repent, do you know what I'm doing? I am giving God permission to show me grace. Grace is not earned. Grace is not earned. You can't go earn grace, okay? I can't go earn grace. Grace is given to me. Grace is freely given to me by God. He is given to me, and I don't even deserve it. But God just gives me this grace because I have repented. I have asked for forgiveness, and he forgives us immediately, okay? Now, after working these 12 steps, the way I'm talking right now, I never talked like this before. This is the Spirit talking, but this is how the 12 steps work. Now, we're not done yet. We go to step 6. Step 6 is, because I've done these 4 and 5 steps, okay, what I'm doing is now I am looking at myself. I'm doing a complete autopsy on myself, and I am seeing what my character defects are. Whoa. I get to see myself. Whoa, I'm a liar. I'm a procrastinator. I'm a gossiper. I have horrible language. I go through there and I'm looking at myself and all my character defects. My motives are impure. Okay? This in 6 and 7 is where our life really changes. 6 and 7, like when I sit here and I say, I can't believe the way I'm talking right now. I can't believe the things that are coming out of my mouth. 6 and 7 is where this happens. For me, that's where it happened. Because all these character defects, on step 7, I humbly ask God to remove these shortcomings. What does this have to do with relapse? Everything. What does this have to do with chronic relapsing? Everything. See, I would relapse because I did not have a relationship with God. I did not have a relationship, a higher power, a spiritual connection. When I relapsed, I was spiritually bankrupt. Spiritually bankrupt. But when I get 6 and 7 and I humbly ask God to remove these character defects, he takes them away. And I have, over the last year, I will see these character defects come up. I will feel them come up. I will feel these character defects come up, and it will physically make me sick. It will physically make me depressed because I would feel them coming up. The reason why it feels so bad to me is because I did step 3 correct. I've made a decision to turn my will and life over to the care of God. I can't go backwards. I'm in. I'm all in. But when I do things, when I think things, I'm in full-blown relapse. When I think out things that are not right, they're not godly, they're not spiritual, I am in full-blown relapse, and it feels so bad. Have you ever woke up one morning, and you have an emotional hangover? You have just a complete emotional hangover. Do you know why I have an emotional hangover when I go to bed or when I wake up in the morning? If I go to sleep, it's because I didn't do step 10 at night. Now, step 10 at night, we're getting there. Step 10 at night can be done differently. It's highly recommended. You put pen to paper, you write it all down. You do your prayers at night. Okay, I do it differently. I'm not that disciplined, but I do review my day. I will lay there and review my day, and I will try to see where I'm right and wrong. If I owe anyone amends, sometimes I do owe an amends, and I try to go to sleep by holding on to that. Do you know what that is? Full-blown relapse. I'm in full-blown relapse behavior. Once the drugs and alcohol hit my lips, the relapse is over. Let me say that again. Once the alcohol and drugs go into my body, the relapse is over. Does that make sense? Once the drugs and alcohol go into my body, the relapse is over, and I am in complete active addiction. Complete active addiction. I want to challenge you to work these steps. Recognize relapse behaviors as they're coming up. Are you gossiping? Are you gossiping? Is your language out of control? Is your anger out of control? Are you short-tempered? Are you plotting? Are you planning? When you go to bed, are you resentful? Are you struggling with morbid reflection? Are you planning on how to get even? But I'm not drinking. I'm not drugging. Yeah, but guess what? If I am doing these things, I am in full-blown relapse, and I'm not spiritually connected because it's blocking me from God. The reason why I don't feel good, is because, are you ready? I'm resentful. There's no way around. I have a resentment, and it's blocking me from God. So what's the solution? I sit down with another man, I sit down with an accountability partner, and I put it on paper, and I walk right through it. Do I do this? No. I'm horrible at it. I'm a drug addict, alcoholic. I'm flesh. I want to hold on to it. I want to try to fix it. I want to try to fix it myself. And I hold on to it until the pain gets bad enough. But if I disconnect and I pull myself away from the program, I stop doing stuff like this, okay? I will drink and I will do drugs again. And I don't want that life. Step 7, we humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. God, please remove these shortcomings, okay? And this is where we look at things and we go, man, I'm just not the same person I used to be. I cannot believe it. I would never have ever thought that I would be frugal with money. I am so frugal with money. I'm very detailed with money. I'm very disciplined with money. I used to be that same way with money, but I always had a bunch of it. I took it for granted. The things I do today, the way that I treat Rachel Stacy, the things I do to her, I'm not always the greatest fiance, okay? But let me tell you something. I recognize it. That's recovery. I recognize that when I'm not doing things right and I'm not serving her, I'm not treating her, I'm not loving her like God loved the church, when I'm not doing that, I recognize it. You want to know what recovery is? I own it. I admit it. And I go make it right. Do I repeat the behaviors? Sometimes I do. Sometimes I repeat the behaviors, but then I go make it right again. That is recovery. is recognizing our character defects, recognizing our relapse behaviors, and squashing it and making it right immediately. Because when we don't do it, when I don't do it, guess what happens? I get more and more disconnected. This is where I'm telling you the disease is patient. Patient. This disease is so patient, okay? Now, if you've been following me for a long time, the more recovery I get, the more spiritual I become. I don't call it a disease anymore. I call it Satan. I call it the dark side. I call it Satan. Satan is plotting. He's scheming. He knows my buttons. He knows what buttons to push, and he does that. And guess what? This is my program, and guess what my God does? He allows it to happen. My God allows it to happen, so I will turn to him. I won't turn to drugs and alcohol. He allows it to happen, so I will turn to him, so God can speak to me, which are thoughts that come out as words, so he can show the world that he alone is God. That's how this works. There are some days where the thoughts are put out there by the disease. I grab that thought, turns to sin, and it comes out, and I wish I could take it back, and I don't like that feeling anymore. Step 7, humbly ask God to remove my character defects. God, remove the smoking. God, remove my language. God, remove my gossiping. God, remove my procrastination. God, remove my lack of exercising. Remove these things, God. Laziness. There you go. God, remove my laziness. Character defects. Character defects is relapse behavior. These are the things that lead up to why do I continue to relapse, okay? If you have a friend, you have a loved one, you're watching this, and they continue to relapse, okay? What do? What can you do? Let me tell you what you can do is get that person, male or female, in front of a recovering drug addict alcoholic. That's what you can do. That's all you can do is get them in front of someone who is in recovery and let them listen to those people talk. Now, step 8, we make a list. Now we're going to make a list of all the people we had harmed, okay? And we go talk to all those. We don't talk to them. We don't talk to them. We make a list. Once again, with our sponsor, mentor, accountability partner, whatever support group that you're in, and what they call this person, someone that's going to walk arm in arm with you that has done this before, okay, and is going to use you. This is so good for that person too because you're helping them, reminding them of what it used to be like. We make a list of all the people we had harmed. Step 9, we go make direct amends to those people we had harmed. We go make amends to them. And step 10, you ready? Step 10, I want y'all to do it tonight, is you take a personal inventory and when you are wrong, promptly admit it, okay? If you have not worked all these steps and you do this tonight, I ask you, do not go make amends to anyone until you run it by an accountability partner because we don't want to hurt them. And number 2 is the reason why the amends are at step 8 and 9 is because I have to get to know myself first. I have to understand that, I cannot be resentful when I go make amends to these people. I got to make sure my motives are in line with God's motives before I go make amends to them because my old me, I wouldn't have made amends, and I would have made amends with impure motives. I would have made amends because I wanted to tell them I was going to make the comeback. Right? I'm going to make the comeback and I'm coming after you. All right? Step 11 is sought through prayer and meditation. We talk to God. We create a relationship with God. Listen, I can't get to know you guys that are in the comments right now if I don't talk to you. If I don't talk to you, I can't have a relationship with you. The more I talk to God, the stronger my relationship becomes. And then as a result of these steps, having had a spiritual awakening throughout the steps, because every step I had a spiritual awakening. I am powerless over alcohol and drugs. I get it now. That means that when I say I'm not going to drink and do drugs, I was drunk and high that afternoon. Okay, I get it. Okay, I get it. Step 2, Community and fellowship. Okay, I get that. Step 3, that means I get to, my God's a loving God no matter what, as I understand him. Wow. Step 4 is an inventory. That means I get to figure out, I can finally answer the question why I drink and do drug. Wow, spiritual awakening. Step 5, I'm going to share all of my darkest secrets with another alcoholic and drug addict. Wow, what a relief. Step 6, I get to look at my character defects. Oh, this is why I do the things I do. These are my relapse behaviors. This is why I relapse. Yes, but dump the junk. We dump all the junk. And then step 8, I go make amends. And as these steps, as I get through step 10, I had this spiritual awakening because this God that I never believed in is so big, and he's so loud, and he's so good, and he's so full of grace, and he is so good. Guys, chronic relapsing. Every mugshot I had, whenever I go do an event and they play all my mugshots up there, let me tell you what I see in those eyes. Spiritual bankruptcy. Spiritual bankruptcy. Let me share something with you. If you're not a believer in Christ, I want you to listen to this as a story, because I'm a storyteller. But there was a day when Christ went to the lake, and they were going to get in this boat, and they were going to take the boat from one side to the other, and they were going to go across this large body of water. Now Christ says, "Get in the boat, we're going to the other side." And they got in the boat immediately because they had faith in Christ. They trusted Christ. They knew they've seen the miracles that he was doing. Man, they were right. Dude, we're Gucci. We're in here with Jesus, and they are in the boat. But let me tell you something. When that boat took off, it went through some of the roughest sailing. It almost capsized. There was water everywhere. And guess what Jesus did? Jesus was asleep in the boat on a pillow. That means he meant to go to sleep. If you get a pillow and you roll that pillow up and you put your head down on it and you go to sleep, that means you meant to go to sleep. That's where his faith was. And they were so confused on why he could sleep through this because his faith in his Father was so huge. Okay? My point of this story is that Christ says that once we make a decision to turn our will and life over to the care of God, okay? He says he's going to get you to the other side. But it's not going to be smooth sailing. And the reason why it's not smooth sailing is because of these detours that are put in our life. Instead of turning to drugs and alcohol, we turn to him. We turn to him and we trust him, because when we do that and he takes us through the storm, he takes us through the waves, and we take that risk and get out of the boat and walk on water, all right? That's my do-over. When I go to heaven, I want to see that, okay? But when we get out of that, we take that risk and we do that, guess what happens? Our faith increases. And then guess what happens? When we get to the other side of the lake and we get out of the boat, the people who are standing there on the land awaiting us, boy, have we got a story for them. We get to tell them how we got across the water without drinking and drugging. Michael Moulton, M2 The Rock. I got 3 words, and I got 8 letters for you guys, and that means in one word. It's got one word, and that means I love you. We'll be back tomorrow night. I hope that helped you. Chronic relapsing. Chronic relapsing. What is the solution? Go to support group meetings. Get you a Sunday school group. Get you a men's group. Get you a women's group. Surround yourself with a group of people that are in the solution. Surround yourself with a group of people that are studying the Word of God. Surround yourself with a faith-based. Surround yourself with solution people. Men work with men. Women work with women. Learn to trust God. Clean house. Clean all the junk. Dump the junk, it was said in the comments. Dump the junk, okay? And once all that's over with and you get to the other side of the lake and you get out of that boat, go tell everybody how you did it. Michael Moulton, y'all have a good night. I love you.
All right, our next guest, Will, has inspired me and has inspired others all across the country. Michael Moulton, Into the Rock, that is his radio show, and I'm so blessed to have him on the show with us right now. How you doing?
Brian, so good to see you. What a great setup.
You like this?
This is really good. It's amazing what happens when we just surrender and just let it go, right?
Let it go. He's got an amazing story. I know we due to shortness on time, and we can't get into all of it, but you are helping others around the country recover from various addictions.
That's correct. So we have a show called Into the Rock, which is in Dallas, Texas. It's aired on social media around the world, and it was a pure accident, and it started with you. And everybody needs to know that when I was released from prison, miraculously, on a paperwork error, which I call God, I traveled over 300 miles.
You walked?
Back to Dallas, Texas to go see my judge, and she set me free and said, go pay it forward. Went to my dad's house to check on him, and you were calling around going, where's this Michael Moulton gone, this luxury home builder? Let's be on your show at the time, you know, talking about business. And I came on a cell phone that I borrowed, and I told you my entire story of what happened to me of being arrested 27 times as a result of drug addiction and alcoholism. And you said, wow, when did this happen? I said, Brian, I've only been free since Friday.
It's incredible.
And so since that day, we've been just looking up and forward.
And that has launched pretty much your career as far as what you're doing right now, helping others. This time of year, many people might be dealing with the stress of fitting in at holiday parties and having a cocktail, or maybe dealing with anxiety and having prescription drugs. What is your best advice to them right now to try to step away from all of that?
Well, if you're in recovery for alcoholism and drug addiction like me, early recovery is very tough. And 100% of us, the reason why we drank and did drugs was because of unresolved fear and resentments. And on top of that resentment list is usually family. So now we're being put back into the family environment. We feel uncomfortable. We think that they're talking about us. We feel like the elephant man. And the disease of shame comes into our life. And we say, you know what? I'm going to go back to what was working for me, drugs and alcohol, and we relapse over the holidays. That's one scenario. The other scenario is it can go the opposite, going, you know what? Maybe I just can't have one drink. I deserve it. You know, it's the holidays. I'm feeling really good. I'm spiritual and hopeful. I can have one drink, and that one drink doesn't stop there for an alcoholic like me. It goes on to the bitter end.
Let's talk about spirituality and your relationship with God. You're openly confessed that is the probably only way to truly step away from an addiction.
I can't relate to any other program. I don't knock any other program, but my recovery is a spiritual recovery. I'm truly convinced that I had the spiritual stronghold of addiction. Now today I have the spiritual stronghold of recovery. What does that look like? It's one alcoholic working with another. It's one drug addict working with another. Men work with men, women work with women, and that way we can relate and we feel safe. So when I'm working with another alcoholic and I'm connecting with that man and he starts nodding his head up and down, that's something spiritual. That's something a lot bigger happening than me.
Absolutely. If you're watching this right now and you want to get a hold of Michael, he's got a hugely successful radio platform video. How does someone do that? Because I've seen you personally help thousands of people.
M2therock.com. That's M2therock.com. Just go there and you can get in contact with me through all of our social media platforms. We got the great Smoots who represent us in our PR, and they handle all of that.
And remember that was Steve-O on the show, by the way.
Yes, we've had Steve-O on the show. He was a great guest, and I met my future wife on the show. My future wife came on the show, so Rachel Stacy.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. And I'm so glad that what you're doing, you're truly doing God's work and you're helping people. And you can see the response that he gets on Facebook for all of this. Once again, go to Into the Rock on Facebook, Instagram as well.
Absolutely. All social media platforms, all podcasts, download it. And thanks to you, Brian, for just reaching out to me and helping me. Look what God's done.
Absolutely. Stick around. We'll come right back.